criteria, and we would ask that you would make separate motions after each of these since they are addressing separate sections of the code. So with that, I'll turn it over and let the applicants give their presentation.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor, Commissioners, City Attorney, City Manager, City Clerk, Mr. Waters, it's good to see you again as well. We're proud to be here. This is tonight's the fulfillment of a long road that began with your CRA. And your CRA was able to choose us in the first process, the first hurdle that had to be jumped.
May I interrupt just 1 second? Would you mind, everybody who speaks, just state your name, please?
I'm so excited about the project, I forgot to mention. So, Michael Weiner with business offices in Delray Beach, Florida.
Thank you.
It is exciting to be here. So the process continued on from there. We were lucky enough, the group was lucky enough to be chosen, and it's the group that you have, the actual developers are actually made up of, and tonight Cindy LaCourse Bloom is here on behalf of the Community Land Trust of Palm Beach County. That's a nonprofit organization that has to be part of the bidding process group. And then Alan Schneer is here on behalf of Realtek. Realtek is a tax credit developer. They're skilled in this kind of housing and in doing this. They form the partnership that enters into the contract with the CRA to buy the land. We don't buy the land until this is all over. CRA keeps control. You've heard tonight, Al is not abandoned until this is all over. There's lots of control on the part of the city and the CRA with respect to this. They're actually your applicants tonight asking for it. The land is still owned by the CRA. And they went through the first hurdle, of course, being selected. We then had some long meetings with the CRA. One of the largest meetings I think I've attended, almost 20 people in the room, the purpose of which was in order to get it right with respect to the details. We were then fortunate enough to have William Waters and his staff, and we went through another meeting with them because, as you can see, the plans are very complicated. There's lots of technical details. Everything has to be shown on the plans from the size of the piping and the utilities and everything else. So we went through that process as well with them. Then we were fortunate to have public meetings after that, and we were unanimous at every public meeting. So we believe a great deal of vetting process is going on to bring us here tonight. With that in mind, and I think Mr. Tim would actually be excited a little bit, I think we'll be bringing about $40,000 in revenue as a result of building this project. So we'll be making a contribution. With that in mind, it doesn't take the lawyers to talk about this. Larry Zabek, who is our construction consultant, is here. As I said, Alan and Cindy are here. Liz Calme, who's really proud of the project. Liz, why don't you come up and explain? Fool me.
She snuck up on you.
And Jeff Prometier. We can answer any questions that you may have. If you have questions concerning operations, I mean, this is affordable housing. First of all, they're great communities that have a strata of demographics. Just because, and you've gone to great lengths to make sure that your community has that strata. And there is no reason to believe that people of a certain income level treat their housing differently than others. So I don't think you're going to approach that project with that in mind. But if you're interested in how they're operated and what it does and how affordable housing differs from, I don't know, the name that's always thrown around, Section 8. We're here to tell you about that as well tonight. But again, I go on too long. You want to come up with this?
I'm here to present. I'm Liz Colomay from Colomay and Associates, and our address is 530 24th Street, West Palm Beach. The design of La Jolla Villages was intended to work with the craftsman style of architecture that's in the city, and to work with the street level too, as well as having pedestrian porches that go from the street level up to the units. You can see it, I think on the next slide, on the site plan, we have, in addition to the clubhouse and the leasing office on the easternmost unit, we also have an art studio that we would work with Lula to bring art to the neighborhood as well as to the community. We also have a living wall, which is adjacent to the splash area, and that would be a 20-foot high wall that will help with the sound that comes from the adjacent railroad track. Along the entire east property line adjacent to the FEC track, we would have a sound control wall, which would help not only this development, but also the neighborhood to the west. Going down the page, going to the west, we have the units, and you can see on the front, on 6th Avenue and F Street, we have porches along the walkway, the sidewalk, and then we have an internal breezeway that, the reason that one long building is separated so many times is to allow light and air to get into the breezeway, so it's not a dingy hallway feel. The project is going to be developed for Florida Green Building certification. So a lot of the finishes are sustainable, so they'll last for 20 years, 30 years. We're doing tile throughout all the units, and we'll also have hard surface countertops, such as granite or quartz. So the intention is to do something that I would want my daughter to live in when she's starting out and not making a lot of money. Not necessarily, there's a time in my life I could use to have a development like this. So. The history labyrinth is just a green area that would have a large tree in the center, and we thought plaques about the Lake Worth history there, so it's something, and you could sit on the bench under the tree. And then we also have a picnic area for barbecuing. And then the splash area is a water amenity, and our later plans also have a small tot lot as well for children to play. So if it's too cold to go on the splash area, they'll have a playground to play. So we've tried to address the amenities that everyone would want to see when they live in an apartment. It's not intended to be something that's designed to be less. It's designed to be what people would want to live in. The community garden would be open to the community as well as to the residents. And there would be a fence around it, so you would have to get a pass key to go in, but it would be would be watered from a cistern. So we're putting some of the green elements in the public view so that they can see how the green elements work. We would have common area lighting on the commercial building that would be run with solar panels. So that also brings in the green element. This is looking from 6th Avenue from the corner, and you can see we have a sign. We want to put a lot of art. This is not a sculpture that would actually be there, but we would like to have one of the local artists produce a sculpture that would be at the site sign. And then this is along F Street. This is facing the residential area, and you can see the porches that step down. And then this is looking at the art studio along 6th Avenue South, and there would be a pedestrian gate that takes you inside the more private area. And then this is looking from the back. You can see the tot area, the picnic tables, and then the splash area and the living wall. And the living wall is really just a vertical wall with plants on it. And that would, like I said, it would help with the sound, but it would also give more privacy to the splash area, so when people are going by, they don't see into that area. So that is the presentation that I have on the buildings, and if there are any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner McBoy?
If you could go back to the site plan, I guess. Yeah, no. The north-south breezeway between the buildings that are directly on F Street and the next row in, is that covered?
That's covered completely throughout. There's no access, the access into the breezeway, there are 3 points of access so that those would have a pedestrian gate on them to provide security for the residents, and then that way people aren't wandering through. From F Street, you would have access to the porches, but you wouldn't be able to access the breezeway from F Street. You would go around to 7th Avenue or 6th Avenue to get to the breezeway.
And are there windows facing onto that breezeway on those buildings?
No, that would be the entry doors. The windows are all to the sides and to the outside. The breezeway would be covered with the entry doors and like signage for each unit and
So facing onto that north, because north is to the left in this,
That's correct.
that north-south